Hi, my friends. Here with you in this marathon of filming unboxings or walkthroughs. I uh, I have another today. This was an unexpected one. This was sent to me by my friend Nina, who accidentally bought two copies of it and asked if I wanted one. And I said, "What the heck? Let's check it out." With food and tarot, I'm always like, "Let's see it in person. Let's check it out. Let's taste it." So this is a deck that I had not had on my radar. And it is called the 78 Elemental Tarot of the Natural. And it's a collaborative deck, sort of organized and written by Trish Sullivan and illustrated by 81 artists, some of whom you will recognize, I would imagine. So this is the sixth in a series of collaborative decks through 78 Tarot Elemental. 78 Tarot presents their sixth collaboration. 81 artists from across the globe, each one creating a card to celebrate the elements earth, air, fire, and water, with a little spirit too. So it's Kickstarter, I believe, or GoFundMe. Again, I hadn't really heard of this before, so it was something that my friend offered, and I said, let's take a look. It's a really, really interesting, and I don't mean that in a dismissive way. It's a really, really interesting thing. And collaborative decks are always really something that I'm always wary of, because they are very they're not necessarily cohesive. I think the only collaborative deck that I ever found super cohesive was the Slow Holler, which is out of print and which I sold because I wasn't using it and someone really wanted it. But that had a limited color palette, and what that I think allowed the deck to do was to cohere in a way that collaborative decks don't always, because I think it was red, gold, black, and white. Those were the only colors. And in limiting that palette, it brought the cards together in a way that a lot of collaborative decks don't. Now, of course, the whole point of a collaborative deck is that it's not necessarily about cohesion. It is about celebrating artists and bringing them together. And in that way, I think that they're very cool. I don't have many. There was one a long time ago, and it may still be around, called The Artist's Inner Vision. And it was one that I really wanted when I started reading, and it was indie and very expensive for me at the time. And I think you can still find it, although honestly, I haven't thought about that until just now. But it was a deck I really wanted at the time. But that was the only one that I ever sort of had on my radar that I was looking for. But this one is new. I'm going to keep using the word interesting, which is a word I hate. It really is interesting. There's stuff I really like about it. There's stuff that just doesn't work for me. But it's kind of like a fabulous picture book and a work of art in itself, which I'm down for. Now, the first thing that's a little too much for me, I have to say, is the amount of gold involved in this. Now, I am not necessarily opposed to a little bling, but gold is not my favorite color necessarily, and these cards are very gold. So you'll see right out of the gate, it's just a little bit of a disco moment for me. You can't see it because it's on the wall, but it's like shooting glimmers of gold across the wall. So it's gilt edges and gold backs, and to me, it's just a little ostentatious for my taste. That's just me. Here's the box. I love the inside here with the signatures of all the artists. I think that's really dope. Magnetic box. We're loving these magnetic boxes. We are loving indie deck publishers who are serving us fantastic packaging. Guidebook, written by Trish Sullivan and with contributions from the artists. Full color, beautiful, little guidebook. And you get the artist's interpretation and then the card's message by Trish Sullivan. So, have not looked at that too closely, but did look at it enough to know that that's the case. So yeah, this is the very gold back. I'm not mad at it. It's a little much for me. I'm a little more vanilla than that, I think. But, who am I? They are large cards. Here's one. So to compare it, here's the World Spirit. So this is like typical Llewellyn size, much bigger. Again, not mad at that either. Oops. I really need to clean off my table. So there are a handful of extra cards because there are, of course, 81 artists and only 78 tarot cards. I guess I'll preempt this by saying I probably wouldn't use the extra cards because I don't generally do that when I'm reading. I don't know that this is a deck that is a practical reader because it is very difficult to shuffle. So, and it's actually not the size of the cards, it's the card stock itself. I did see, after Nina sent this to me, I went to the Kickstarter and I did see the sort of, I think it was Trish Sullivan who said, I'm a cardstock snob, so I really care about that. I don't know if it is the foiling on the back that has to be stamped or what, but though the cards individually feel really flexible, they do not shuffle well. It's impossible for me to riffle shuffle it. I can't corner or side shuffle it. It's too big for me to bridge. And then even I'll show you, even when you're overhand shuffling it, they clump together, and really thick stacks. And I think that might be an impact of the gilding and the stamping. So that's another thing. I feel like it's a little less practical than it could be, because even though I don't see this as something I would reach for all the time, I think that this is absolutely something you could read with, except that the cardstock isn't conducive to shuffling. And I'll tell you, I would take a cheap Llewellyn cardstock over a super fancy cardstock that doesn't shuffle well, because love it or hate it, Llewellyn decks shuffle great. So there we go. All right. So, technicalities aside, gorgeous deck for the most part. I mean, in a collaborative deck, not every art choice or style is going to resonate with you, and there are definitely some that don't with me, but by and large I would say most of them do. I went back and forth on whether to even make this video, aside from the fact that the person who sent it to me suggested that I do it. I wanted to, but I also feel like if I say I really don't like that card, because each card was created by a different person and they only made one, I feel like that's me shitting on an artist, and that's not necessarily the case. It's just that card may not be a card that I particularly like, and it doesn't mean that I don't like that artist. But in a case like this, it's like, I don't like that card, thereby that artist is an asshole, which is of course not the case. You know what I mean? Like, it's tough. So to talk about the deck in generics, is doable, but also less interesting. So, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm just going to beg everyone's pardon and accept that reviewers review and they say how they're reacting to things. And as a playwright, I've had really awful things said about me in newspapers. So I've been there. So forgive me. So the deck starts with these extra cards. This is Meditation. So that's another thing I really like, is that the name of the artist is on each card. Bravo. I can't get this in the bravo for that. So, there are 3 or 4 extra cards. Meditation. Chakra Healer. Now, this is a card that freaks me out a little bit, I'm not going to lie. So this one would not stay in the deck. I apologize to Michael Barks. Is that what that says? Banks. Michael, I'm sorry. It's just, it's a trigger for me. I can tell that you're talented, and I apologize for pissing on your work. Everything is a matter of taste. This spirit card is gorgeous. I love it. Probably wouldn't keep it in the deck because I don't know what I would interpret that as, but really, really beautiful. I'm not going to mention the name of each artist because I do want to sort of go through this relatively quickly. They are on each card. They are in the guidebook. Very well done in that respect. You will see artists you recognize or that I recognize. I'll sort of point those out, but there's the Fool. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful energy in that one. This is a Raven Phelan card. You can probably tell immediately. I'm a big fan of her art in the Dreams of Gaia Tarot, a deck that I don't use much, but I do love the artwork quite a lot. So that's the Magish, the High Priestess, the Empress. I like that this Empress, you can't really quite tell, but she's not youthful. You know, this is a grown-ass woman, which I quite like. The Emperor. This is a bit of a heavy Emperor for me, I will say, but it's in line with a lot of traditions. A bit dark, scary, but, you know, definitely in line with tradition. And beautifully painted. Here's the Hierophant. I'm not a like dragon fantasy art kind of fan, but I do think that this is gorgeous. It's the Lovers. That's very sweet. Very white and Victorian, but I like that there's a little bit of like femininity to the two faces, and beautiful painting, obviously. I mean, there is not a card in this deck where there is a lack of talent. It just comes down to taste and whether or not you respond to the artwork. Here's the Chariot. This is probably my favorite card in the whole deck. I love this style of art, this sort of linoleum woodblock carving. This is Justice. Let's give credit to this fabulous artist, Craig Cross. Again, I don't mean to like center one artist over another. It's very difficult not to do that. I just love this art so much. I love this style. So beautiful. It's just so, you know, it just turns me on in the way that art is supposed to. The Hermit. Wheel of Fortune. This is obviously Chris Ann Donnelly from Lightseers Tarot. Maybe not obviously, but this strength card is really impressive. Hanged Man. Death. Now, you can see, again, every card is different. It doesn't necessarily feel jarring. There are only a couple cards that feel sort of jarring to me contextually because their color stories are so different. Because the deck does seem to be very rich and colorful and deep. This is not my favorite Temperance card, and again, it's beautifully painted. The reason that it just makes me a little uncomfortable is that it reminds me of religious art from my childhood that freaked me out when I was a kid. So those like saints or like Sacred Heart cards that you would get at church, like this looks like that to me, and it just freaks me out a little bit. This is the Devil, of course. That is Jasmine Beckett Griffith, whose art style is probably recognizable. Tower. This is a beautiful star card for any deck, really. The Moon. This is Joanna Nelson, I think famous for a deck, if I'm not mistaken. The Sun. Thank you for not providing us with a naked infant. Very regal and beautiful. This is Bryn Elizabeth. Judgment. That's gorgeous. I really wish I weren't qualifying these cards that way because I don't, again, want to make anyone feel shitty. The World. I do like this iteration of the World card because it feels very grounded and earthy. And of course, the World, you know, is in earth. So Into the Fire suit. They are fire. They are named for the elements because this is an elemental deck. So Ace of Fire. 2 of Fire. 3. 4. 5. I'm a fan of foxes, and so these 2 foxes make me happy. I like this, and I like the art style, the richness of it. There's the 6. I like the 7. It reminds me of being a child and, you know, that thing of having to face your fears and like fight the dark and, you know, just being sort of brave when you're younger, like Roald Dahl characters. 8 of Fire. 9. 10. This is another card that strikes me as particularly beautiful. This is the Page of Fire. And again, when I'm saying beautiful, I mean that it strikes me, it's touching me artistically. I don't mean that it's any more or less beautiful than the rest of the art. It's just that this particular style is impacting me, and I really quite like it a lot. Here's the Knight of Fire, the Queen of Fire, and the King. I do like this King. It looks like he sort of has devil wings, which is pretty rad, but he's got jeans on. Here's the Ace of Water. 2, 3, 4. Sort of sad-looking mermaid. Melancholy is a better word. This art style is very powerful for me, too. I like that. The 5 of Water. The 6. The 7. And the 8. There's a lot of mermaids in this suit. I wonder if that was spoken of. Now, this looks just like Matt Damon to me. I can't not see it. This is the 9 of Water. And then the 10. The Page. The Knight. The Queen. And the King in this very kind of Dickensian, Victorian sort of look. This art style for the Ace of Air I really like a lot. I like the card itself a lot. 2. I like that too. 3. Now this card is really blurry. I can't tell if that was an artistic choice or if it was bad printing. I don't know. I'm assuming it was a choice. Because none of the other ones look like that. There's the 4. The 5. She ain't fucking around. Do not mess with her. I like this art style a lot. This is the 6 of Air. The 7. 8. That's Gabby Angus West, who I think... Bonefire, right? Bonefire Tarot. 9. And 10. And then we have the Page. The Knight. Queen. And the King. It's kind of a badass. And then the Ace of Earth. 2. I do like the sort of llama looking animal in this one. Who's a very, very sort of resolved face. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. I love the colors in this one. I love watercolor. 8. 9. 10. Page. Knight. Queen. And the King. And this artist, I believe, has a deck that I've been waiting a long time for. And I don't remember the name of it. Shanna Sinkagrana. But I love the style. All right. So that is the deck. Now, I don't really find it super jarring, stylistically. So that wouldn't stop me from reading it. But I literally cannot riffle shuffle it, which I have many decks I can't. It just doesn't bend that way. And it's shuffling a little better now, but even when I was going through to put it back in order, it just like the cards kind of, they don't stick to each other, but it's like they're hooking on each other somehow. And so it's not the easiest overhand shuffle either. And it would take a lot of mixing, which, you know, I mean, that's a little thing, right? You know, who cares? But it's a, you know, these aren't, you know, inexpensive purchases. Now, this does have sort of a museum quality to it in both style and approach. So maybe, you know, I don't know, it's more of a like a show and tell kind of piece than a practical deck. But, you know, I always say tarot is a practical art. So I'm just not wild about the cardstock. I just wish it shuffled a little better. And honestly, I feel like the culprit is this gold. I just think there's too much of it. I mean, it just really, to me, is too much. And again, that's a taste issue, but I just, it's just so much. It's just, it's a lot. So I will stop harping on that, but I'll lay out some cards. It is large, as I have said. So big spreads are a little more difficult with it. So yeah, I mean, I'm not super put off by the different art styles, honestly. I think that the way that the titles are added makes it clear that this is all the same deck. It's beautifully executed, and the style, you know, though some of it is not my taste, I think there's not a card in this deck where I'm like, boy, that person probably should stay away from a crayon. The things that I dislike about the deck really are the construction of it in terms of its cardstock and all that gold. And honestly, I really feel like if this gold were not on the back, it would shuffle much better. I think that is what is causing the grip between the cards. All of that aside, it's a beautiful work. I think that collaboration is sorely needed in the world today. So good on that. Nice, cohesive guidebook. Really, I don't like the cardstock or the foiling, but I think if you stand back from the taste of that, or, you know, your preference, it is wonderfully executed. I do really wish it shuffled better. I think that's just, whether it riffle shuffles or not, I want to be able to shuffle a deck easily, or comfortably. And this one does not do that. So, but it is gorgeous. Bravo to all of the artists and to Trish Sullivan. Trish Sullivan. So that's that. This is the 78 Elemental Tarot of the Natural, written by Trish Sullivan and illustrated by 81 different artists. Hope this was fun. Stay warm out there.